two questions. So it's two-part. One, is there such thing as too much kindness? And then two, is there ever a point where we withdraw our kindness or access of kindness to others because we're noticing that they're taking advantage of it in a way that isn't helpful, based on prior events or prior actions, right? Maybe if I threw an example in there, it might make more sense.
You can, and I might need the example just after I say, I don't know that you can be, man. I think that even when we should distance ourselves from people, if we like, I've had to maybe like fire someone, right? Like things that on the surface may not like, oh, this isn't the kind thing to do, but you can do it kindly. And so I think it's important to have, and this is almost synonymous with like God's justice, because someone will be like, well, how could God punish them? Or how could God allow certain things to happen? Like, this is mean. We can't have a God of justice, God that protects people that do the right things and keeps people safe, if he doesn't punish people that do bad things. And it's not that he's unkind. It's just that there are consequences for certain actions. And I think when someone reaches that point where one of those consequences need to happen, I don't think it's ever okay to like eliminate kindness. And so for that reason, I don't think you can be too kind. I haven't ran into a scenario. Again, I think I would agree with the essence of someone that's like, don't take my kindness for weakness and like, oh, they're taking advantage of me, I'm withdrawing my kindness. I don't think that's withdrawing your kindness. Do you know what I mean? I don't think you need to withdraw your kindness to protect boundaries, to move with principle, or for the right thing to be done. So if you did have an example, I'd like to hear it though, but I can't think of anyone in any scenario in my life where I was like, man, I needed to be less kind there.
That's good.
Okay.
I got a question for you though.
Yeah.
How have you kindly fired people?
I think I can think of one where I had the most recent one. I just had to fire someone. So here's the thing too. Before I'm gonna lead up to the firing, because at first I was really angry with the individual, and it was very difficult to be kind, and I wanted to be upset. But I had to look into it. So here's the grounds for firing. I had to realize that I had a poor system in place. One, he didn't know clearly what I expected him to do. And then two, there was an issue on training. And so something wasn't consistently getting done. I looked into it. I was like, you know what? I have this expectation is here. I haven't even communicated it clearly enough for him to know it. It was a little bit down here. So, and actually this was a contractor that I was kind of working with through Fred. Y'all know Fred. I was trying to like talk. So Fred was dealing with a guy that was struggling. And so we had to get clear, one, on the expectations, again, kindly, right? Understanding like, hey, so here's the expectations. And then here's the training on how to do it. And then when he wasn't hitting it, it was, hey, can you understand why you're not able to do X, Y, and Z? We clarified it. It seems like you understand it and now you know how to do it, right? And there was excuses. And there was like a fire that burned down the internet company at one point. There was like always something happening. And because we got clear on the expectations and we knew that he was properly trained, it was almost like we got to a place where he knew he was fired, because we would meet, we'd be like, hey, XYZ was the expectations. Here's where you performed. Every week, it was like, hey, can we make up this margin? Yeah, I'm going to work on it. Bow, bow, bow. Okay, cool. If you do not, we're going to have to terminate this agreement. Right. And not at one point did we get disrespectful. Did we attack him personally? It was, hey, you signed on to do XYZ. We signed to pay you for XYZ. You're not doing XYZ. So we're going to go find someone else. Okay. And here's the thing too. Like, I think it's really easy for us to get caught up as Christians. It's like, all right, I'm doing life, and then I got to try to be a Christian at the same, like, add the Christian stuff afterwards. Do you know what I mean? And Christ is the foundation. So it's not like I don't ever get to turn that off. Oh, and you got to, as my camera goes off. And so you got to, I think we need to realize that what Christ says and what Christ is trying to, or not trying, but what Christ commanded for us is the standard. And it's not, there's no reason to fall underneath that. Like, we make up reasons and we fall and we come up with excuses. And that's why I think we come up with things like, I'm being too kind, let me pull it away. And I think, and here's the thing too, kindness is such an infinite strategy. Like, I don't know what may happen down the road. I don't want to say the brother's name, but we may come in contact. Okay.
So you didn't burn the bridge.
Thank you. Yes. And I was going to say, we've had a few other people that don't work here anymore. Some that y'all know, like Zoe, who was like our editor and part of the channel. Like, I see, he goes to my church. Like, I see this guy, he still follows up with me. And I think we need to really understand what our motives are. And so for in business, of course, I have motives to make money and to be profitable, but none of that trumps like the people that I'm working with and the relationship with the people. Like my motives are baked into that, right? Like I want those to thrive. I want, and man, what PD said too in the video, I think really rung true for me. I've had times where there was vendors or just contractors, people that I worked with who maybe they struggled to get something in on time because someone got sick in their family or whatever, right? And I've seen areas where I've shown mercy there, like not being angry or pulling away a deal when I maybe could have technically, showing them mercy. I've seen that come back the other way, all the way to the point where there was times like, especially early in my career, I could only see things happening through money. Like if I was going to do something, I had to like have enough money to do this. If I was going to get someone to do work, and it's just naturally to think that way. We hit a stretch in the business where I couldn't pay for certain things, and people that I would always work with, when I didn't have the money, they were like, "Oh, you good? You're good for it, right?" And that broke me because up until that point, I didn't know how to get things done, and that was the way I would limit God. I was like, man, if I don't have enough money to do this, I don't know how I'm going to do it. And so there was people I would approach like, man, I can't do this. I don't have the money. And they were like, yo, well, when will you have the money? And because I've always been honest with them, I was honest. I was like, man, I might not have it for, I don't know, might be like 60 days. I'm like, shoot, we could do that. What? And I don't know if y'all are familiar with like letting cash float for 60 days is heavy. And not a lot of people will do stuff like that. People will work like working for free. And it's like, not like my team. I'm just talking like little people I worked with here and there. And I was so grateful for me not burning bridges earlier because I had to walk back through them humbly later in the future. And so again, it's a reason why you never know. And kindness is an infinite strategy. This should be our first go-to, not like, all right, let me add something to it, or let me judge the situation. Like, how kind should I be? No, just, I don't know that kindness is gonna hurt you, as long as it's in the principle of like what we said, like assuming that you don't think you're being kind by staying with a man that's beating you up, right? Like that's not being kind. You can kindly say, hey, this relationship is over. Like you don't gotta, I'm out of here. I hate you. You did this. No, it's like, hey, love you. Right, you can do that kindly, and that's much better. Because
I'm sorry.
Because here's the fluffed up thing that we struggle with. Even that guy that might be beating on you, and this is for like the woman. Like man, God is trying to do something in that relationship, and so who knows what part you may play of it. And I think way too many times people think I have to be in the trenches with this person to like do something that's meaningful. You exiting with love and keeping a distance and an open heart with love is probably one of the most powerful things you can do to someone that may not deserve it from the world's perspective, right? And it's like, how can we do that? We get love that we don't deserve, right? That's the basis, the foundation of our and PD read all that. Like how kind you got to be a self-sufficient guy that don't need us. Is much better without us, right? He's like, but I'm a partner with you, and walk into covenant with you, and be gracious enough to give my son to be brutally murdered, even though I know you can't keep your half of the covenant, and that's why I'm doing it. Like it's kind of fluff. And then so for you to go out and not be merciful to other people, I think is wrong.
There's so much about that, and the reason why I asked you, because so God invites us into this relationship with him, that he was kind to us, right? And our challenge is oftentimes is to accept the terms of the agreement that we read, like in Galatians 5:22, right? So God's like, I want this relationship with you. Here's the terms of the agreement. So he writes it out for us clearly, and we miss it. But the reason why I asked you specifically about firing, because if people have ever been in a position, and if you ever get into a position where Dion is, I've been in a position like that most of my life, where I was responsible. Let me explain to you like this. I was responsible for other people's bills, car payments, food, all the other kind of stuff. So to let somebody go, to fire someone, to terminate an individual is a huge thing. So there's gotta be this level of acknowledgement of kindness from you as a person, because you have to realize that you are literally changing the trajectory of this person's life, their family, the way that they eat, the way that they pay bills, the way that they do all of these things. This is something that we have to be incredibly aware of and not just fluff off, because you're literally changing somebody's life when you have to fire somebody, including the burning bridge thing. I had to let go of two people in particular over the course of the last 20 something years. One of the ladies, even though I did it in kindness, she was flaming mad. But 2 years later, she came back to my office, asked to speak to me. When she came in, I sat down. I just knew she was going to tell me how I was this worst person ever and all this other kind of stuff. She actually thanked me in that moment, because much like what Dion did, I tried to keep moving her into places where I thought that she would work and giving her the support, but she didn't do it. And she realized it was her. But she said, had you not let me go, I wouldn't be where I am today. Another person I ended up having to let go, who ended up working for me in another scenario. He was at another company. I had to let him go there when I was executive director. And then he ended up working for me in another scenario. It does depend on how you deal with people. And kindness is incredibly important, because if you don't have to burn the entire bridge down or burn the bridge, period, but you know how to approach that person, like Dee said, you never know when you're going to need that person again. So you want to be careful about how you deal with those relationships. And kindness is the way to lead the way in that process. So that was great, Dion. That was great.
Yeah, that was beautiful. I think you ended up answering the question too. You kind of brought up the example of a man beating up on his girl or whatnot. Even if it's something that's not that extreme, right? Like maybe a family member taking advantage of another, right? With money, with finances, with shelter, all these other kinds of things. Being able to kindly throw up the deuces, be like, I'm gone, I'm out of there. This not gonna work no more. But keeping that character, I'm thinking what I'm hearing. Correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm hearing is kindness is a character, or
Absolutely.
kindness comes with character, and so. Because that's the case, right? Even though there are things that may happen, even though there are negative things that happen, it's more so about your character toward that negative thing than it is about the initial event itself.
What do you mean by negative thing? Define that.
So the individual being fired is a negative thing for that individual, but your character and how you presented that to them, but not burning that bridge, is more important in that moment than like Dee mentioned, fluff off that dude and we could care less where you go, what you do.
What is the whole story of Galatians 5:22, guys? Character. That's the fruit of the Spirit is all character. As a matter of fact, when God is addressing us, it's mostly about character. Change your heart, change your character. And I've given you, once again, like I said, I've given you the blueprint, right? You have the rules, the way that this thing is supposed to go down. I've given it to you. Here's the terms. Work these terms out. This is what it looks like. So it's our character most of the time. Like I said, your character oftentimes opens doors for you. That the other people wouldn't open doors for you for. because they just believe in you. They're like, no, I think he's a good guy. No, I think she's a good gal. Your character. This is the stuff that God knows that has to be changing us, because our inherent lower nature is not built for character to be the first response that we have when we encounter something that's difficult. It's not. So yes, our character is incredibly important. And kindness is a part of our character that we have to develop. We're not born with that. So there's a difference between somebody who gets ran over. That's not kindness. That's low self-esteem. That's not having the ability to stand up for yourself, to set a proper and appropriate boundary for yourself. That's not kindness. We're talking about knowing how to move in wisdom in a given situation that you know requires you to be kind, and not because Dion could have said to this dude, yo, man, you just not performing. We done. We told you everything we need to tell you, we're out. But instead, he said, hey, we explained it to you. We trained you. We did our part. We looked at our part of it and said, this is what we need to do. Now, this is the bar. And so what we need for you to do is be here. And if it doesn't get there, then unfortunately, we have to terminate this scenario. That's kindness. Now, if he'd have been like, hey, man, if you don't get this done, bruh, you just gone, you out. No, who's going to respond to that appropriately? Nobody. But he had to say what he had to say and deal with the situation accordingly. So firing is a really good example, actually, of what it looks like to have to be kind to somebody, because it's never easy and it's a tough situation, to be honest with you. It's really tough because, like I said, the way I always viewed it as a boss was I'm changing somebody's financial outcome right now. And somebody who's connected to them, I'm changing their opportunities right now too, at least temporarily. This changing based on this decision.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. That's good right there, both of you. That's dope.
What's going on, party people? Listen, I'm just popping in real quick to let you know that I've got a new podcast I'm whipping up in the kitchen called The Bridge Podcast. I'm part of it with co-host Pastor Demetrius Colbert, who you've seen on this channel quite a few times. And we're here having real, raw, and relevant conversations.
We are going to say what you say. So sometimes it might be a little PG-13 because we're going to say what you say, like clapping cheeks, like they turned me on to that. Clapping cheeks. I was like, what?
Yeah, they're talking loud of their masturbation experiences, what they're currently doing when they get home at night, who's doing what, how many times, how did it feel, sore, all that good stuff. I mean, they're getting in it. Now, before you get to thinking, no, you don't gotta be a Christian to check out this podcast, because at the end of the day that we are all humans having life experiences, have questions, serious topics, serious concerns that we all would love to be helped with and get navigation with. And so this is where we come in, looking to give some insight from my perspective and his, that we could come together and share some wisdom that I think will be beneficial for you and the journey of life you're on.
The whole point of the bridge, again, is for you to be able to get on it and not criticize the bridge, but to use the bridge and say, I need to walk across on this side and hear what needs to be said. And I need to walk across on that side and hear what needs to be said.
So don't forget to check us out. Link is in the description, and I can't wait to see you there.